Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Seric Show. I'm Spencer Van Winters, and I've once drank an entire water tower.
Like by yourself?
Just by myself, exactly.
Like, why? Like, was this like just a day, like just a thing to do that day,
I got
or were you?
thirsty. I don't know. Just
Oh,
something to do.
yeah,
It's
you are
quarantine, come
definitely
on.
thirsty, man. That's all I can say about that. And I'm Eric, and this morning I woke up. It was 7. Then I waited till 11 to figure out that no one would call. Anyways,
I have
enough
no
about me.
idea what... Wow, that's really sad, actually. I don't know. That's...
Well, then why are you smiling and laughing? It
Because...
doesn't feel
Never
genuine.
mind. Anyways, today we will be doing an episode where we talk about teams that we project to be the best in a couple of years based on their team now, their prospects, their salary cap situation, all these different factors. We're gonna put into like a little mold to pick 5 teams out of all the teams in the NHL, and we're gonna go back and forth from 5 to 1, and then we're going to compare our notes. And if we have the same teams but higher up, that's all right too. That's actually good because we want to hear why our opinions differ. So
Yeah.
yeah, so go ahead.
Also, today you'll probably notice that we have our faces revealed. This is big
Yes,
face
yes.
reveal.
Actually, I forgot to mention that we are using our face cams today. So hello, my name is Spencer.
Hi, I'm Eric. I feel like we've already been introduced to this video, but well,
Yeah,
again.
but like, yeah, okay, you're right. Okay, anyways, we will go into the number 5 picks we have. For myself, or do you want to go first, Eric?
Please, I would love to hear
Okay.
from you.
For my 5th overall selection in this, I have chosen the Montreal Canadiens. I've
Very
chosen them
interesting.
just because. So in my notes, I've gone through the Montreal lineup from this past season, and gone all players 26 and younger, which I feel is a good age. That's where you're about your prime-ish, or like just heading into your prime. So that's like you're just about what you're supposed to be, and like younger than that. And I want to use those players as like a point of reference for myself when I'm looking at how I think they're going to project in the future. So Nicholas Suzuki, 20 years old, unbelievable player. One player that's not even on here that I really like is Kotkaniemi, because he was in the AHL all this season, I believe. They have Jake Evans, who's a 23-year-old forward. Arturi Lehkonen, 24-year-old forward. Jonathan Drouin is still very young at 24. Max Domi is also very young at 24. I think because we've heard those names for so long that we kind of associate them with being a little bit older, but they are still very, very young relative to some other players that are very similar in skill level. They have Charles Hudon, who's 25, Xavier Ouellet, if that's how you say that, Xavier Ouellet,
Yeah.
who's 26 years old, Charlie Lindgren, who's a underrated backup goalie, I think. I think he'll project to be an underrated backup goalie. Somewhat like a McElhaney on the Leafs like a couple years ago. No, I'm joking. But Brett Kulak, Philip Deneau, and Joel Armia, who's still 26. I always associate him with being like 28 or something like that, but he's still 26. So they've got a young group, and I think they have even more prospects. I mean, I'm just going through the
Now,
hockey news
Spencer,
here.
I will just say,
Okay,
because I feel like
yes,
this is
go
a
ahead.
decent time to interject.
Of course.
There were 3 other teams that were in consideration for number 5. I kind of had to split my top 2 teams I knew, and then I separated kind of the top 4 as well.
Yeah.
But there were 4 teams in the running for number 5, and the Habs actually were my 5th team as well. So we do have the same
Wow.
pick for number 5.
Oh, very, very nice. Very nice. Okay, so just going into it a little bit more why I chose these guys is on top of the players that are already on their roster that are of decent young age, they also have Alexander Romanov, who we've talked about in past episodes, I believe, or just in If not, then we're going to talk about him now. He's a very good young defenseman. They call him the assassin, or something like that. Like that's what the management calls him because he like kills plays. Like but he's considered to be he projects to be a really high pairing defenseman. Cole Caulfield, they got him at a steal, one of the best shooter or goal scorers in his draft year. Caden Primo, it's always nice to have a good young goalie prospect. Caden Primo is 20 years old. He's 6'3", 200 pounds, decent young goalie. Ryan Foling, who scored a hat trick against the Leafs in his first NHL game, decent young player. They got a lot of other players. Just you wouldn't be as recognizable by name. But go ahead. Why do you think they're number 5 as well?
Yeah, I think obviously you gave a kind of great list of kind of where their prospects are at, and with the teams that were in consideration, which I'm sure we'll circle back to at some point as well. They were either had a very good prospect pool or like some good, decent young players in the NHL, and I felt like Montreal kind of had a decent mix of both, and also something that I was looking for is kind of having all positions covered, and the fact that they do have Caden Primo in their prospect pool kind of separated them from the pack for me because, as you said, he's one of the top goalie prospects in the world. He's only 20 years old, and they won't need to rush him having Carey Price, so he should have all the time he needs.
Well, hopefully they shouldn't have to rush him with Carey Price in the net for them. The way he's been playing recently, maybe that's not so sure.
Well, I mean, he's 32, but I think Price has, I think, 6 more seasons on the contract though, and I don't see how they get rid of that contract. So I mean,
$10 million. So yeah, it's kind of hard to 10.5. Yeah, for 6 more years. That guy who's injury prone too, right? I'm a goalie. I love Carey Price, but yeah.
But yeah,
anyways,
Nick Suzuki, I think has really established himself as one of their bright spots for the future.
It was a great trade in the end. The Pacioretty, he was in the Pacioretty deal with Vegas, I believe, and that's turned out to be a great deal for both sides. Pacioretty's playing well for Vegas. Or last time I checked, he was. He's liking it there. Yeah. Like I've seen interviews with Pacioretty. He says he loves it in Vegas. He loves the culture. He loves the like. It's not as much pressure as Montreal was, and it's like kind of suits his style of personality. And they get that, and he's a great player, and he's a good leader. He was a captain of Montreal, as we all know. Nicholas Suzuki comes over to the other side. He's young. He's a centerman. I believe he's a centerman, right? Yeah, and he's what Montreal needs is young skill. He's fast up top to add to what they already have. So.
Yeah, and also in that trade, of course, they also got Thomas Tatar, who really didn't fit in Vegas, and he's been great for Montreal, kind of rediscovering his form from Detroit days.
I agree. He's just not on my list of players I mentioned before because he's not in that age category I mentioned. But yes, he is another player that helps with even developing some of the younger players. I mean, you can't deny that having older players of that skill level doesn't help the younger players and help them develop. So
yeah, having those players to bridge the gap as to not rush people into the league when they're not super ready, is super
not
important.
Nazem Kadri.
And it happened with Kotkaniemi this year. I mean, he did start in the NHL, but
and he played well in his first year.
He surprised. His offense wasn't great, but he was keeping up, especially for the first half of the year. But then, what happened was Montreal was trying to push for a playoff spot last season. And because of that, they kind of prioritized success over development. So, that younger player who needs that ice time to develop and learn and get better was he wasn't their top priority. Their top priority was trying to salvage the season and make the playoffs. Which in the moment you can understand, but in the long run now you can kind of see how it has affected
hurts his development
and his confidence, right?
Because he's back in the AHL right now.
And I believe he had a pretty good season in the AHL, which has officially been canceled now. So his season would be
it's
complete.
over, and the KHL too. So
Yeah, which I don't think is super surprising, honestly. Um,
No.
but he definitely found a little bit more of his offensive touch. In 13 games, he had 13 points. Um,
Very nice.
one kind of concerning part, though, is that he only had one goal. Um, and he
Is he a
did.
big goal scorer in the NHL though, or any other league he's played in, or is he more of
Um,
a playmaker?
well,
Is it like consistent or?
this season in the NHL, he scored more goals than assists, but
Mm-hmm.
it was 6 goals to 2 assists. So he kind of struggled. That was 8 points in 36 games. So you can understand why he got
Oh,
sent down.
yeah. Oh, I thought it would be less games than that with
Hmm.
that point total, but yeah, if it's only that, oh gosh, yeah, he struggled then.
Which is it's especially I'd say frustrating if you're looking at his development because he was eligible for the World Juniors this year and
Hmm.
he wasn't allowed to go. He wasn't loaned out, and then shortly after they kind of sent him down. And I remember the Oilers actually did a similar thing with Draisaitl when he was kind of struggling. They didn't loan him to the World Juniors and then sent him down. So obviously, I mean, he's still 19 years old, so he has so much time to turn it around. But
Yeah, exactly.
another former third overall pick where that happened to. I don't think he has the offensive upside as Draisaitl, obviously, because not many players do. But definitely,
No.
he still has enough time to turn it around.
Yeah, not many players can outpace Connor McDavid in points, so yeah, I think we'll forgive him there.
Yeah, and I think one strength of the Montreal farm system as well, which is surprising because it's actually been a weakness for them on their actual team, is their left side on defense. As you mentioned, Romanov was there,
Hmm.
um, and they also have a couple other top prospects as well who play the left side, such as Jordan Harris and Jaden Struble. Those guys project to be at least a second or third pair defenseman on that left side, and with already
Hmm.
having a Victor Mete in the NHL who seems to be holding his own all right.
Yeah, a
That
little
should
small,
actually
but
go
yeah.
into, but that should kind of turn into an area of strength for them as well.
Hmm. Fair enough. Yeah. Who do you have for number 4? I'll let you go first this time.
I will say the one reason I don't have Montreal higher than this is
Okay.
because I feel like they're lacking. If for a Montreal fan, if you're paying attention here, this has been all positive, and I'm sorry to bring this up again, but they still do not have the top line center, and
No.
I don't see that in their prospect pool.
And you don't
Um,
think Nick Suzuki will be that? I think he prospects to be, projects to be, like a second line center, like a good second line center though. Not
mhm.
taking anything away from Nick Suzuki. A second line center in the NHL is nothing to be like, oh, he's just a second line center. But it's not what the franchise needs.
Yeah, second line center, or I think he has potential to be a first line winger as
Okay.
well, being
Right winger, do you think?
yeah, a playmaker to go with
Hmm.
that centerman. But
Yeah, skilled player, very
yeah,
skilled.
I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason they tried to go after Sebastian Aho last summer, unsuccessfully for sure. Kind of a silly
Kind of a
offer sheet,
bad attempt too. Yeah.
but I think it kind of highlighted the fact that like they even understand that that's kind of what they need. As well, like they're even though I said like their defense is a strength, I don't see any surefire top pairing defensemen. Um, so it's kind of they have great depth all around for all positions.
Yeah.
Caulfield should be a
Oh,
top
he
six
is going to be
forward as well.
unbelievable.
Even though he had a tough World Juniors, I think that kind of got overblown just because there's so many eyes on that tournament, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Some
but
player just because you don't play well at the World Juniors doesn't define your career, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, he was the highest scoring under 19 player in college
I mean,
hockey this year.
DeBrincat
So
didn't even go to the World Juniors one year. Remember?
yeah.
Because wasn't even cut. He was cut before from the World Junior USA team,
Mhm.
and he's having a fantastic career in Chicago. So I don't think it's too much to worry about, but it's something definitely that you can't ignore, but it's not something to worry too much about.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely be a top six player. I think it'll take probably 2 more seasons at least, just for him to
Yeah,
develop, get bigger.
yeah. I was about to say his size is the main issue there. I think I know I know Johnny Gaudreau can do it, but Johnny Gaudreau at least has a little bit of weight on him. If I think he does at least, or Caulfield, I'm not sure about the sizes difference, but Johnny Gaudreau has a size and he works with it. It works well in the NHL the way he plays, and if Caulfield can look at that and be like, "Hey, this is what I need to do. Hey, this is the mold," then that's perfect. If you can have a Johnny Gaudreau type player on your team, I'll take that any day. So,
yeah, so they have that, but they're still kind of missing that elite talent that I think the other teams that I'm going to mention at least kind of have in place. But at the same time, Montreal I think is a very interesting team to watch because how many draft picks they have coming up. I mean, they have 3 second-round picks and 3 fourth-round picks to go along with 2/3 and 2/5 in this upcoming draft. So they have lots of kind of currency in play if they want to make trades to try to get one of an elite piece or kind of move up in the draft even, depending what happens.
Or restock the cupboard, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like they have a lot of room to do that.
Yeah,
and goalies even like they can even grab a goalie later rounds because usually they don't go until then anyway. So, I mean, like you have rare exceptions like Spencer Knight to Florida where he went. I think it was like 15th or something.
He went 13th.
13th.
Yeah, which can we just mention very quickly? Foolish decision.
Yeah, he would have gone in the second round.
No. Like first round pick, that's fine. Like if you think your team needs a goalie. But the fact that they signed Sergei Bobrovsky to a 7-year contract for $10 million
with
each
Spencer Knight,
and that he struggled, you have this supposed top goalie prospect who should be ready in, let's say, 3 or 4.
Yeah, I was about to say 3 to 4 years. Then you already have Bobrovsky at $10 million. Oh my God, it's
and
like
you're
right.
That contract.
That is silly. Yeah. Who's gonna want Bobrovsky in like 3 to 4 years if he's playing even on par with what he's doing right now, like.
And maybe he's playing great, season. But then what do you do with Spencer Knight?
Yeah.
Yeah,
what do you do with Spencer Knight? Yeah, I mean he's a valuable asset at that point. If you're not using him and Bobrovsky is playing well.
It's true, but they say always go.
But you never want to give up on a young goalie like that. I mean, look at Tuukka Rask, right?
Yeah, and I think you never get as much back on a trade when a team knows that you kind of have to.
Exactly, that you have to, or you're more inclined, or if you're approaching them to get rid of something, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Also, just like a little side, just like a little off topic, but talking about Suzuki, what do you think of his younger brother Ryan?
I will withhold my thoughts on that until a later team I discuss.
Oh, okay. Wow, okay, that's a little hint. I like that. Okay, go for your 4th team, my friend.
Okay, well, this is a great time to bring up Ryan Suzuki's brother once again because my 4th team is the Carolina Hurricanes.
Okay, very nice.
Do you have them on your list?
I do not have them on my list at all. I looked at them very much, though.
Okay. So Carolina, I think, has a great mix of a lot of high-ceiling prospects along with established NHL players that are young enough to kind of bring them into the future, which is a really good position to be in. Having Sebastian Aho, who we mentioned earlier, Montreal's failed offer sheet, being that top-line center for the future on a very nice contract, courtesy of the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, he's a player that just keeps getting better and better, and to have him under contract for less than $8.5 million for the next 4 seasons.
What round did he go in? Like the 3rd round or something?
He was a 2nd-round draft pick.
Okay, the 2nd round, but still, like a 2nd-round draft pick with that kind of ceiling is a steal.
Yeah,
steal.
And the fact that he was, he then starred in that World Junior lineup with Laine and Puljujarvi, just terrorizing everyone. They were all underage players, and they dominated that tournament.
Yeah. Do you remember why he went lower than the 1st round, or like went higher than the 1st round?
I don't know exactly, but I'd have to assume that it had something to do with the fact that he's kind of undersized as well, and he doesn't have blazing speed, so kind of that combination, a lot of times
he uses his edges a lot more than than
Yeah,
he uses his flat out like straight speed.
exactly. He's got great mobility and
Mm-hmm.
obviously great IQ and everything. But I think as an 18-year-old player in the draft, they probably looked at the fact that maybe he doesn't have the greatest speed for a smaller player, and he might find it a little tougher to make the adjustment. But obviously, Carolina made a great choice there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And they also have, Teravainen, who I know you love for sure, 25 years old. He signed for 4 more years as well, $5.4 million.
Exactly.
That's good. Andrei Svechnikov, geez, man. He's 20 years old, and he already has a move named after him. He made changes. No one in the league ever used that Michigan move.
Yeah.
And then he did it twice before anyone else could do it, which was
and Niels Hoglander did it, right? But he's the only one to replicate outside of the NHL. Yeah, he did it on European ice, so it doesn't count as like that. But yeah,
Crosby did it back with Rimouski all those years
He did.
ago.
I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. I have to look for that on. Wow, that would be a cool clip to watch.
Yeah, and they called it the Michigan because I believe the first way that it was popularized was someone on Michigan University pulled it off in a big game, which is awesome.
Yeah,
there are only so many
such
moves,
a fire
right?
up, especially at a university hockey game like Michigan. Like they have those massive games where all the fans are there, like the students, like such a big fan base. It's awesome. My cousin goes to Michigan, and he says he's not the biggest hockey fan, but he goes to the games and he enjoys them like to the max because they're just so much fun and everyone's so into them. It's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you have anything else to add on Carolina?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So Svechnikov should be a top line winger for them. Martin Necas as well. Had a great rookie season. He's been kind of on the cusp of breaking through, and he did this season. And their defensive core, I love, and most of them.
That's the one. Sorry, that's the one thing that I was like looking at and being like, it's young and it's great.
Exactly. Jacob Slavin, Brady Shea. Now they added from the New York Rangers, signed long term for just over $5 million. Both 26 years old. Hayden Fleury's there. Jake Bean is who's someone that would be in the NHL on any other team with any other defense lineup. Who's ready to play.
Very good young defenseman.
He's just had to kind of wait for his moment. And of course, Dougie Hamilton. He's been around. He's still 26. He's still 26.
He's
Brett Pesce's
25,
too. Signed long term
before he got injured.
So they got their defense is kind of signed, sealed, and delivered at this point. And their forward lineup, they have a lot of guys like that. Ryan Suzuki, and Patrick Pistola, who's Finnish. He's 19 years old. He's another player that was drafted in the 3rd round, but seems to have been kind of a steal and went lower than they should have based on their skill level. So they kind of go for that high ceiling player with elite talent that if they make it, they'll be a great player. And I think
go for the best player, right?
Because their system right now, they have a lot of like good, decent players. Jordan Martinook, Warren Fogle, kind of those players that can grind it out, just plug and play wherever they need. So they kind of have those dealt, and with their style of play, it's very up tempo. It's very hard to play against. And so
I remember watching them in the playoffs. It was impossible to play against them some nights.
Yeah, exactly. And no one expected them to go that far in the playoffs, and that was with less skill than they'll have if some of these guys graduate and make it. Another guy I just want to highlight is Jamison Reese. He's the forward for the Sarnia Sting, 18 years old, just turned 19. But I'm assuming that he's probably going to be in the conversation for Team Canada at the World Juniors last year or next season, having 61 points in 39 games, and he just looks like a just great sniper. He has that kind of pop offensively. He's 5'10", a little smaller, but this is what Carolina kind of wants to focus on. Their owner Tom Dundon famously said that we will not draft another forward in the first round because they have so many defense. Or sorry, they would only draft forwards in the first round.
Forwards, and I was the same because they have so many defensemen.
Exactly, and they're well situated there. So now they got a lot of kind of an infusion of high end offensive talent, which is coming through. And it's interesting to note. I mean, Jordan Staal. How old do you think Jordan Staal is right now, Spencer?
Jordan Staal, 34.
Yeah, he's 31. So he's not even that old. So he's going to be around when this next crop of players kind of breaks through, can mentor them.
And he's still playing consistently, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still great defensively, able to chip in as that second/third line center. And if a Suzuki kind of can make it to that second line center, you got Staal there. They have another prospect, Jack Drury, who is the nephew of Chris Drury, former NHLer, and kind of looks like a solid, safe bet to kind of take over for Staal even. So they're looking good down the middle behind Aho as well.
Very cool.
I will say the one kind of concerning point is their goaltenders. As I said,
I was going to say goaltending. What are they looking like? They have Nedeljkovic, if I'm not mistaken, but I can't really think of any other young goalies they have.
Yeah, exactly. Anton Forsberg's 27 now, so I won't consider him. Nedeljkovic is definitely the only one that's kind of in consideration there. He's 24 now. I remember him starring at the World Juniors, and I thought this guy's going to be a star for sure.
Yeah, I always drafted him in NHL, the video games, because he always had the best potential as a young goalie. And I was like, holy crap, I've never even heard of this guy. He played on the Ice Dogs, and then he came up and played in the AHL ever since. Or he might have gone to the ECHL, but I don't know. But yeah, I just he kind of fell off a cliff a little bit in terms of prospect rankings, and we kind of just kind of stopped hearing from him as he went to where's Carolina's Charlotte? Charlotte, yeah. So it's sad, but I mean, what do you think of him? I didn't really do very much in-depth knowledge into Carolina, but
because of the kind of hilarious situation between the Leafs and Hurricanes this season, which ended with the goaltenders being injured for Carolina, he kind of got thrust into a position this year without being ready, and he was lit up a little bit. He only played 4 games, but he had over 3 goals against per game. He was kind of in the middle of a playoff race. I don't think he was really ready for that, but
that's a good defensive team too. Letting 3 goals per game on a good defensive team, that's kind of worrying as well.
It is, but I will say, that was also where, Hamilton was out with an injury. Pesci had gone down.
Okay, so they're, and he's young. He's a young goalie. It's hard to put blame on that. I'll let him pass.
Last year he was great though. In their playoff run, I think Charlotte actually won the Calder Cup last year, which kind of shows they were at least in the finals. But I think it kind of shows that their farm system is kind of ready to take that next step, kind of like the Leafs were with the Marlies the year prior. Yeah, they beat the Chicago Wolves in 5 games.
Oh, awesome!
In the final.
So they have a decent farm team.
Mm-hmm. And they have that playoff run experience where
they mesh together as well.
Exactly.
The players mesh together. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so you always want to see that. It's not just that an AHL team if your AHL team wins the Calder Cup, it's not that you have the best prospects in the league. It shows that your team is very is on the same page and they work well together, which is almost what you want to see more of, because if you have a lot of skilled players that don't work well together, then you're not going to get anywhere, because they're always just going to be getting each other's way. But if you have a bunch of players that have skill, they're not the top of the top in terms of skill, but they have the skill to play with each other and create some offense. I'd prefer that in my opinion, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And Nedeljkovic was, he was their starter for most of that run. Had a .916 save percentage last year. This year, though, .906. So at 24 years old, that regression's a little worrying. So we'll see if he can make that jump. But if not, they're going to be.
Is that on a championship team? Not. Well, how were Charlotte during the regular season this year?
I'm not
Do you know?
quite sure. I know that they
Okay.
had uh, some players graduate, like
Mhm.
Natchez and stuff from
Mhm.
their roster. I
Mhm.
can quickly pull that up. Hold on. I think they were a decent team. Hold on.
Okay. In all, it doesn't really matter, but like, yeah, but it's a little worrying if your save percentage is going down, especially after being the best team in the AHL the season prior. If he was part of that as well, so he part of the Calder winning Charlotte Checkers?
Yeah, no, he was their
Was he the
starting goalie.
starter? Yeah,
Yeah.
so that is kind of worrying that unless they lost a bunch of players because they went up to Carolina, then that makes sense that there'd be a deficiency in the production for Charlotte and maybe like less of a and therefore like less production from Nedeljkovic because he's not getting the same support or not having the same like goal support as he did, like not just defensive support.
Mhm. Yeah, he was also splitting time with Anton Forsberg this year, so maybe that
Okay.
was it a little bit more. But yeah, at the same
Yeah,
time,
because we know some goalies that when they have more playing time, they play better. Like Fleury, when he's playing a lot more and in a row and consistently, he plays better, I think. But when he's like periodically, he'll have like little stints. Like when Murray was and him were kind of battling, he wasn't playing the best. He in the playoffs he played fantastically. I'm not saying that, but like I feel like some goalies need to play more games in order to really develop and can't have the competition at the younger age. But it's also of course it's progressive to have competition when you're young because it makes you work for it. But some goalies might need more playing time than others. That's just the weird thing about goaltending position, right? You never
yeah.
know.
But I think as well, um, we'll see. There's with a lot of kind of free agent goaltenders coming out in the next couple of
Mm-hmm.
years, like Holtby and Lehner's going to need new contract. Uh,
Holtby's a big one.
I think Carolina will probably be in on that to try to get them a goalie that can kind of stabilize the crease because ever often they're
Mrazek
looking
and
pretty
Reimer
good.
are not. Yeah,
hmm
Mrazek and Reimer aren't cutting it. I don't think in the next couple of years. So
I
even
like
though Mrazek had a good season, I just don't think that that's the standard they need to win the Stanley Cup.
I like Reimer as a backup, and I like Mrazek as someone who splits time, kind of like what the Islanders have been doing. But
Okay.
I don't think they're great tandem together, if that makes sense. Like I think
hmm
Mrazek should be splitting time, and Reimer should be a backup. Like those.
Mrazek's like a 1B and Reimer's like a B1. You know what I mean? Sorry, what am I
I'd
talking
say he's
about?
a two.
A two is like a two is a 2A is a 2A.
Yeah.
Sorry.
hmm So yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that's
So that's Carolina for you. Okay. So
Carolina.
number 4, Carolina. Eric chooses. I have actually gone with the New York Rangers as my number 4 pick. I have chosen them due to the fact that they have Kapu Kako, 18 years old, the 6'1", 181-pound left-handed right winger, I believe, if he plays on the right wing.
Yeah.
He had 23 points. Pretty good for first season. I mean, not everyone's going to be like Matthews and McDavid numbers in their first season. Second overall pick. He had a pretty good season. He showed some skill, used his size. He had a, you, that's a, I'd take that rookie season. Do you know what I mean? From a player of his ability, because he still has a lot of room to grow, obviously, but he wasn't expected to put up like 60 points.
hmm
So you have Philip Chittle. Is that how you say his name? I don't know.
Edel, I believe it's Edel.
Hedel. Okay, so he's 20 years old. He's fast as heck. I remember watching a bunch of his highlights. He came out of nowhere really. I didn't really remember hearing about this guy until he started playing with the Rangers, and then just flew out. And he's a really good young prospect.
I
Ryan
believe I
Lindgren.
believe he made the team as an 18-year-old, 18 or 19. He kind of surprised that year. He was
Yeah.
a top 10 pick and then kind of just made the team.
Okay, maybe he was a top 10. I didn't know. Let me see when he was drafted. He was drafted 21st overall in 2017.
Well, first round pick, but then he.
But still a first round pick. But so he's kind of living up to what he should be then. If he's a first round pick, I wasn't looking at him that much. But Ryan Lindgren, who's a decent young player. I think he's a right-handed defenseman. No, he's a left-handed defenseman. But he's 21 years old. Brett Howden, good young forward, 21. Adam Fox, who I know you love a lot. He's a right-handed defenseman, really good. Came from the NCAA, I believe, as not a free agent, because he refused to sign with someone, I believe, and then signed with New York. And then
he was drafted by Calgary originally, and he was traded to Carolina in the Dougie Hamilton trade.
That's what it was. Okay.
But then he wasn't going to sign in Carolina, so he became a free agent and signed with the Rangers. As you know,
can you imagine Carolina with Adam Fox on their blue line as well? Like just from what you said,
I think that kind of factored into his
why he was able to be traded.
No, his decision not to sign with Carolina.
Oh, okay. So you're right. He wasn't traded. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Julien Gauthier, who I actually really like a lot. He's a forward. He's pretty big, 6'4". He's power forward. Brendan Lemieux, who's he's all right, but he's young as well, 23. Alexander Georgiev, he's 23 years old. Igor Shesterkin, 24 years old. Anthony DeAngelo, 24 years old. Pavel Buchnevich, 24. Trouba, 25. Zibanejad, 26. A lot of their top producers, like Ryan Strome, 26. Steven Fogarty, 26. Philip Giuseppe, Giuseppe is 26 as well. All these guys that you see throughout their main part of their lineup are young and they still have a little bit of room to grow, or just or can develop more as a team, and they're still young enough to learn. So I think that's why I chose New York, as well as the fact that they have Vitaly Kravtsov, Niels Lundqvist, Keandre Miller, Elias Anderson, Libor Hajek, a bunch of these guys in Hayak. Sorry, I'm bad with pronunciation, but all these guys in their development, in their systems, right? So just going off that, I couldn't help but pick New York, especially with those two goalies. They have room to maneuver with two young goalies, especially with Henrik Lundqvist, who's pretty close to hanging up his skates. Sorry, I couldn't help but go with New York.
Yeah, no, I will say, Spencer, the only issue with this pick is the fact that you only have them at 4. So I will reserve my Rangers talk until later in the list.
Okay.
I am very high on the New York Rangers and their future. So that's all I will say for now.
Okay. No, I really like them, and I thought number 4 was a good spot in terms of the other teams I have on this list. Yeah. So do you want to go next, or should I go next if we're going back, forth, and stuff?
Please, go for it.
Okay. So my third pick is the Vancouver Canucks. I have chosen them due to the fact that they have, of course, Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser. They have Adam Gaudette, Jake Virtanen, Thatcher Demko, Bo Horvat, who's 24, and their captain. Tyler Mott, who's slowed down a little bit, but he's still decent. JT Miller's 26, right in the prime of his career. Tyler Toffoli's only 27. He's just out of the range I set, but he's still decently young in order to keep that core a bit younger than most teams in the league. I love their prospects. I mean, Vasily Podkolzin, I love that player. He had to spend 2 more years in the KHL due to his contract when he was drafted, but I think he's going to have... he didn't have the best World Juniors, I don't believe.
No.
But I still think that he has a high ceiling as a player. As we said with Cole Caulfield, just because you have a slow World Juniors doesn't mean that you're not going to be the best player like in the world. Well, obviously, I'm not saying Vasily Podkolzin is going to be the best player in the world, but I think he's very good. Niels Hoglander, like we were saying, Michigan move guy. He's a very skilled young player. They have Cole Lind, who I actually really like a lot. He's a decent right winger. They have Oli Levy, who kind of fell off a cliff in terms of rankings, but I still think he's 21 years old. He's a left-handed defenseman, 6'3", 198 pounds. There's a lot he can learn. I think if he just works on a bit of stuff. I mean, he had a bunch of injury problems. I think he had a knee injury. But other than that, if he can get past that and start working out and get stronger, I think he could do a lot. They have Michael DiPietro, who's a young goalie prospect. I really like him a lot. Played for the Windsor Spitfires. Jet Wu, who I like a lot. And I like the core of the team itself already, as well as the prospects. I think that's why I went with Vancouver here.
Yeah, Vancouver is also my number 3, Spencer. So just
perfect.
Yeah, just want to throw that out there. Yeah,
we don't know each other's lists, so yeah, if that's not clear by now.
Yeah, I think obviously the Pettersson and Besser combination is pretty lethal, and once again having that elite talent, it's kind of easy to supplement that with other depth and everything. But for the teams that are lacking that high end skill, it's kind of hard to make that up, such as Montreal. It's you're not really going to find them often in free agency. It's hard to trade for them. So drafting is mainly the way that you're going to do that.
Yeah. And they've done an amazing job at drafting.
Yeah, they've had a pretty good track record lately, other than
they've missed some. Yeah, they've missed some, but they've missed on some. But recently, like the picks they made, like Pettersson, Hughes, and Besser, are unbelievable picks. And they were like Quinn Hughes is 4th overall, I believe, right, or 7th, and Pettersson 5th. But Besser 23, like that's a pretty good pick, right?
Yeah, and JT Miller was a great pickup in the trade. Obviously, a little concern with the fact that they gave up a first-round pick for it, so they'll need to take a step forward next year for sure. And
I mean, he did play like it was right to trade that first-round pick. He played like the player they needed him to play like in return for that first-round pick, because he was one of their top players, I believe, this year.
Yeah, it's true, but it's just the fact that it wasn't lottery protected. So if they missed the playoffs, then that could be a huge issue.
You're right. You're right.
And Toffoli, I don't think he might not stick around. Honestly, he seemed like kind of the fill-in for after Michael Ferland went down with an injury, at least for the year. Yeah. He'd be a decent look long term, but they might have to save some of that money to sign Hughes and Pettersson. But yeah, man, like they've got. As you said, DiPietro, I loved him in the World Juniors. And Demko as well. I think Demko is probably going to... Well, they have a tough choice because Markstrom's going to be a free agent.
Markstrom's unbelievable, too.
But he's 30 now, and he's a free agent. So it kind of comes down to
I think they're starting to lean towards Demko starting.
Mm-hmm. But
I think they could. I think he's sort of ready. He started playing a lot more games. I'm not like sure about this, but from like seeing like highlights and stuff from the year, I just remember seeing a lot more of Thatcher Demko as the season progressed. So I don't know.
I think that's the only reason that might be the case is because Markstrom got injured. But Markstrom had a Vezina caliber season compared to 100%. Demko. So I don't think their current style of play is that comparable. I think it's just, are you going to kind of commit long-term to a goalie like Markstrom, who's 30 and just had his greatest season, or are you going to trust Demko, who hasn't shown that he's quite ready, especially because of that first-round pick in a season where they need to make the playoffs if they're going to give up on Markstrom to trust Demko to the future. I mean, Markstrom had a .918 save percentage this year, one of the tops in the league, which was, he had been steadily climbing for a couple seasons from .912 the year before, so he was getting better.
I've always liked Markstrom.
Demko with a .905. I
He's young though. He's young. He's got room.
he's
But
24.
I still see what you
It
mean.
takes a while, but they need
He's a
to
goalie though.
but they need to make that decision now
Yeah,
because
you're right.
their
You're right.
cap space is going
They're
to
kind of at the end
disappear.
of the road here.
Hmm. Yeah, cap space is going to disappear, and they need to make a decision whether they're going to be a contender now or they're going to wait a year or two to completely be ready. But it's hard to say. It's hard to just lose a goalie of the caliber of Markstrom.
Yeah, 100%. Even if you do have like we said, DiPietro and Demko there, like you don't want to lose a Vezina caliber goalie in terms of just his play, but also his value in trading. Like you don't want to lose a player that you could potentially get something for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just bad asset management. Like even if you have like all these players coming up, it's still not a good idea to just get rid of them just because you have a surplus of prospects in that position, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and I just want to go back because I'm not as high on Podkolzin as you are.
Okay.
I think I don't know if he has the ceiling. Actually, I think he plays very fast. He's physical. He's like hard on the puck, but he seems more of a power forward than having that elite skill. And he's not the greatest playmaker or something like that. His IQ is kind of not where super high end right now. But once again, I mean he's young. He was 18.
He's only 18 years old
during the draft here, so obviously,
yeah.
He should be a useful player in the future. But I'm just not sold on him being a top line guy. And
what I'm reading here is like why I also think he's pretty good is, he's played center and wing, so he's versatile in where he can play, which is not what you can say for a lot of players, especially at his age, who are versatile in their positions, right? So I think he has a lot of room to grow. I'm not saying he's an unbelievable player right now. I just like from what I've seen from him, and just seen like the little things he's done, that if he just becomes more consistent with it, I think he could be an unbelievable player in the league.
yeah, for sure. And
It's just the consistency of it, I think.
yeah, DiPietro as well. Loved him in junior, but he's only 6 foot tall. Not many goalies are that small anymore. And against elite snipers in the NHL, it's going to be a tougher road for him. So he will. I feel like he'll take more time than the average goalie prospect to kind of get used to that and adapt his game to get ready.
Yeah, like the one player I think of when you think of undersized goalies is UC Saros, right? You think of small goalies, Bernier, Saros, players like that.
Khudobin.
And I think Khudobin, and those players have succeeded in today's NHL to a degree. And I think DiPietro, if he just finds his ability and his confidence, I think that he can do it too. I mean, it's not to say, I know it's the mold is a big goalie that can move, like Anderson, Bishop, all these guys, Vasilevsky. But I think DiPietro, even though he is only 6 feet, it says 6'1" here, but it's give or take an inch or whatever, it doesn't matter. But I think that if he works on his game, there's no stopping him, even with his height. I mean, hockey is a game of inches, and if you can cover all the holes in the net, that's all you need to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. And last on the Canucks, I just want to highlight another player, Tyler Madden.
Okay.
He's a good center at Northeastern University, kind of skilled, good puck mover, got that goal scoring. He's kind of a nice player who they're hoping could be their kind of solution at forward as well. I mean, they got Pedersen and Horvat there, so their top two centers seem kind of locked in. Just having players who can, it takes something to be able to play with high-end offensive talent. So,
100%.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you're number 2 now.
Well, this one, even up to very close before we hit record here, I was debating between my top 2. Because in my mind, there was a clear division between these top 2 teams and the rest of the league, just based on, the teams that I was thinking about. And really, when I think of their future, it's super bright.
Okay.
And it was tough. I mean, with me wearing the Nathan MacKinnon shirt right now, It was tough to put the Colorado Avalanche at second, but I did. So they are my second ranked team.
Damn. Okay, I'm interested in your first one now.
They are my second ranked team. Do you have them
So
as well,
Colorado.
Spencer?
I have them on my list, but
Okay.
later on.
Okay, so there we go. So obviously, when you talk about the Avs, you got to start with McKinnon. He's 24 years old, signed just over $6 million for the next 3 seasons as well. I mean, that's got to be one of, if not the best contracts in the league.
100%.
Having McKinnon, Landeskog is their captain. He's been around for so long because he played as an 18-year-old. He got the captaincy not long after, but he's still only 27.
Yeah.
He's good to play. And they dealt with so many injuries this year, but they were still in the thick of it. The conversation for the Central all throughout the season, and the fact that they did that while also having such an impressive prospect pool is pretty incredible. Rantanen, obviously, as a 23-year-old, being one of the best right wingers in the game. He's huge. He kind of play that game.
He doesn't play like he's huge either. He plays like he's like 5'11". It's unbelievable. Just the way he's able, his agility and his switching on a dime, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I remember there's this one goal he has where he does a stop spin, and it's unbelievable. Oh, great goal.
Yeah. Sorry. So having their kind of top line set in stone for the next years to come, a fearsome line already, and I mean they should just get better and better as they grow up a little bit. And having that second wave, I mean Burakovsky, they got this season in a trade. He's only 25, and he kind of really grew into his own throughout the season. Tyson Jost is an interesting one based on the fact that he's 22 now, and he still hasn't quite carved out his spot. I'm not sure if he's going to be there long term. But he has the pedigree of a top 10 pick as well. And up front, it seems kind of like there's the top 3, and then there's everyone else, which is good, solid depth. But there's not as much there, at least on their main team now. Obviously, they have prospects on the way, like Alex Newhook, who a lot of people think should have been on Team Canada this past season.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's got great skating.
Boston College.
Mm-hmm. And Shane Bowers is kind of like a safer third-line center ceiling guy, but someone that definitely should play. So there's kind of that divide. But on defense, I think you'll agree is where they kind of really shine the brightest in terms of their future and kind of current players.
Oh, yeah.
With Cale Makar, 21 years old already, but already taking the league by storm and really dominating. And you combine that with the fact that he could potentially be joined by Bowen Byram on the top pairing in the future.
Yep, Vancouver Giants.
Yeah, it's really tough to find anything wrong with that, especially with Sam Girard as well, who's still 22, and he signed long term for starting at $5 billion next season. Now, if you haven't seen him play, you probably haven't heard much about him. That seems like a lot, but he's an undersized defenseman who can skate like the wind, got a great shot, defends hard. Seems like a perfect second pair guy who can slide in behind Makar and Byram in the future. Ryan Graves was a surprise this year as well. He kind of really came into his own, was leading the league in plus minus. He had an absurd
24, 6'5", unbelievable.
Yeah. Zadorov is well big. I don't know if he'll stay around just because they got a lot of defensemen coming up. But Connor Timmins as well as that right side defense. He should be the second pair defenseman to go with Girard. So they kind of got that top 4 set in stone. It's hard to really find any faults in their lineup. But the reason that they came in second for me was, once again, I was kind of looking at covering all the bases here. And it doesn't seem like they have a long-term solution in goal, whether that's going to be Grubauer. Frank Kuz played well this year, adjusting to the NHL. But, I don't know if he's going to be the guy in the future. Justus Annunen, who is the goalie for Team Finland in the World Juniors this year, he was almost single-handedly the reason that they beat Team USA in the quarterfinals. He had a great tournament other than the game against Canada. which he struggled. But I mean, a lot of players would. But he had
a lot of goalies struggle against Team Canada.
Yeah, but he had a great season in Finland, so they're hoping that he could be a guy in the future, but that he would be 4 or 5 years off probably. So there's kind of that, concern of exactly what their long-term plan is going to be in that, whether they can trust Grubauer with that or they have to look elsewhere.
Yeah. So I should I tell you where I put Colorado?
Well, I'm pretty sure because you would have said if you also had them second, you would have said now. So I'm pretty sure they're
so they're my first pick, but I'm gonna go with my second pick is Ottawa Senators. Yeah,
Ooh.
I have picked the Ottawa Senators due to the fact that if you look at their team, look at their team right now. The reason why I say the Ottawa Senators is because of the 3 first-round picks they have in this coming draft. If those picks land, this is a hypothetical. This is more of a hypothetical than a for sure, which is why I have them at second in terms. But I think that if they get the 3 first-round picks, if they are high picks, they pick good players, not just in their positions, but just out of all the players in the draft, they get skill. They add in a couple of years. I'm not talking about next year or the year after. I'm talking a couple of years. I think Ottawa could be a big threat, especially if they find a goalie somewhere. If they find a young goalie, because they don't really have that, unfortunately, like Colorado. And they don't even have a goalie right now, really. I mean, Craig Anderson isn't really what I want in my net. And they have Marcus Hogberg, but still. But I think that Eric Brandstrom, Alex Formenton, Josh Norris, Lassie Thompson, Shane Pinto, Jacob Bernard Docker, Logan Brown, Rudolph Balcers, Vitaly Abramov, all these names, they can add skill if once they're a little bit older, because most of these players are 20 or younger, and they already have Brady Tkachuk on their first line, I think, even, and he's only 20 years old. They got Colin White, who's an underrated player, Thomas Chabot on the back end. If they just find a bunch of pieces and draft well, I feel like they could be a very good team in the future.
So Ottawa was one of the honorable mentions for me, which is close, and I think the biggest reason why is, as you mentioned, for sure, the fact that they got those, especially the first 2 picks this year, being theirs and San Jose's, which turned out great for them. It's kind of the reverse of them trading away the Colorado pick that ended up to be pretty good player in Bowen Byram. But
was it 4th?
It was.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've got a lot of pieces for sure. A lot of guys.
I hate saying it, but
right. I mean, obviously, with us being Leaf fans, I put Habs as number 5 here, and the fact that I think they got a lot of players that probably project to be second and third line players. But I hesitated, because I don't see a lot of first-line talent. Obviously, that should change with the draft this year, but I wasn't going to base this off of hypotheticals. Just personally, when it was so close, I kind of, tie goes to the known quantity. And as you mentioned, the fact that I don't see a definitive goalie solution as well. And they probably won't use – they might use that 3rd first-round pick this year on a goalie.
The Islanders one.
The only one I see worth a first-round pick would be Yaroslav Askarov, and he's probably gone by the top 10. So unless they use one of their first 2 picks, which I would recommend with a team needing that much elite skill elsewhere, I don't think they're going to find that in the first round this year. So they got to look for that. But for sure, I mean, they got Tkachuk should be a top-line player. Just not someone who drives the line himself, but someone who can kind of play with another skilled player. And Chabot is a stud. He's just munching minutes on that back end. And Brandstrom should be there soon. So they got some guys that should make an impact. But for me, it was just, less young players in the NHL as compared to like Carolina. As I said, that's the team that you didn't have on your list. So that's kind of where the divide happened there.
Yeah, I just looked at the potential of it. Like I thought I could take a different route than you in the terms of like the here and now, and I was thinking if they can do this, I totally think they can turn things around in Ottawa. But if they make wrong decisions and they do what they've been doing, not recently as much, because Anthony Duclair is still 24 years old. Chris Tierney is 25. Like, these guys are all right players that can play. Connor Brown's 26.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I see
all these guys
a lot of
who
second
have
and third
some
line players, though.
Yeah,
right.
But a lot of second and third line players, I would like second and third line players on my fourth line. Do you know what I mean? Like,
sure, on your fourth line.
Right. But going up, obviously you want to get better talent. That's why I think this draft is very important for Ottawa in terms of getting that first line talent. But right now, I think having all those second and third line players is a good starting point for a rebuilding team. I mean, you want to have a good base instead of just adding great, and then everything else is really bad. I think having a good base and then adding to all with like high talent is a good plan for Ottawa.
Yeah. No, there definitely needs to be, a degree of depth around, and not just having top end guys, but
obviously
I
prefer that, but
yeah, just as far as players that have made a positive impact in the NHL, they were just a little bit behind, and I think a lot of times, I think it's another symptom of playing so much NHL is the fact that you're just always looking for the young guys, the rebuilders, draft picks, and everything. But some teams can get stuck in a rebuild for a while. I mean, look at Buffalo.
Right.
Poor Buffalo.
Look at the Leafs.
They got Eichel, man. Well, I wouldn't even say the Leafs. The Leafs got lucky. We got lucky.
Leafs got out of it at least a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly. But Buffalo's still in it, still trying to make that next step. They got Eichel, then they got Dahlin. After years where they should have been better, but they were bad enough to get Dahlin. I mean, and they still have that. They're still kind of struggling to break out of that. Even Edmonton was, you could say, before this season. Or they kind of were in it and they just couldn't take that step forward. So it is risky. Just for me, if I'm projecting into the next couple of years, whether Ottawa is going to be able to, really make that jump in that time, they got a lot of work to do. But the potential.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, that's all I was saying is just the potential. I thought it'd be outside the box pick, and I thought it'd be fun. So
yeah,
might as well. So I'll go next just because you already said this team, but it's my first pick is Colorado. So like you said, all those players, the young defense, great upcoming talent. They still have a lot of young players on their offense that are good. And they can, like just a bunch of prospects everywhere in all positions except goaltender, of course. But also, I didn't really hear you talk about this player. Maybe you did, but Martin Kaut, is that how you say his name? Kaut. He was 16th overall draft pick in 2018. He had 3 points, I believe. Yeah, 3 points. But what do you think about him? I didn't really know what to think of him. He was the youngest player that had played for the Colorado this year at 20 years old. I just didn't really know very much about him. I wonder if you knew anything.
Yeah, he got called up, with part of their injury parade as well. And he should be a decent third line winger at least. He can score add a little bit, but I don't think he projects much higher than that.
Okay, so I was hoping for a little bit more considering it's a first round pick, but
I mean maybe second line.
Yeah,
but
yeah, but it's hard to say. But I love the consistency with Colorado, except in goaltending. But that can be done. That can be dealt with, especially if you have all these pieces. That not everyone will make it into the lineup, right? So. You're going to have some flexibility there. I'm not sure about their cap situation, but I'm not sure if it's very good or very bad.
It's good.
It's good, then they're perfect. Do you know what I mean? They have cap room, then they're able to make moves. They're able to move pieces if they need to. They're not handcuffed. So I found Colorado for that reason as well. I guess just hearing it now is another reason why they're my number one pick. I didn't even consider it, but the flexibility they have is underrated. I think so.
Yeah, and I mean that cap space can definitely be weaponized, and the fact that they have,
Yeah.
whether it's just used for free agency or they save it for all the young guys they got to sign. I mean, Makar is going to have a hell of a contract. So
Yeah, thinking about just this coming year, like it's going to be a unique free agency in the sense that a lot of players aren't going to take longer deals because lots of teams won't be able to pay as much right now as they would have in previous years.
mm-hmm.
So a lot of players are going to take 1-year deals worth like 8 million or something and go to good teams. So Colorado, with that cap space, they're able to sign maybe a good player in the free agency for a year or two, or just as a rental maybe, and try to go for a cup run because they have the team that has the skill to do that, as well as players that are coming up, and adding a free agent that wants to come to a good young team that has success. I don't see why not.
Yeah, although I will say it's dependent on the player whether they'd be prepared.
Of course, it's
to
circumstantial.
Do that. Yeah, and just because there are a lot of rentals that just don't hit, and I think it's because of if you don't feel like you're a part of something as much.
Fair enough.
It might be more difficult,
but I don't know. It could be interesting, is all I'm saying, and having that as a weapon is definitely a factor. So, who is your number one pick, good sir?
My number one pick is the New York Rangers, and the fact that you have them way down at number 4 is a little surprising because they have elite talent everywhere across their lineup, which is really what separated it from me. Because once again, I think it's easy to kind of fill those gaps, get those players. There's so many good players all over the world now. I mean, even signed from Europe and stuff, that you can find a good third-line winger somewhere. But you're not going to find a top-line left winger like Panarin pretty much anywhere else. You can argue he's the best winger in the game right now, especially with the way he played last season. He probably was. Zibanejad also.
Him and Kane still would be unbelievable. I would love to see that again. Him and Kane, like I remember seeing an interview with Patrick Kane where he said the most fun I ever had playing hockey was with Artemi Panarin, because he's just that good of a player and he just makes playing fun. And I think that's good for a young team like New York as well.
Yeah, and there were talks, especially after he got traded to Columbus, of whether he was a product of Patrick Kane having his highest scoring season ever. That's why Panarin had so many points. But no, it was Panarin that helped Kane kind of reach that plateau.
Exactly.
He kept it going, set franchise records in Columbus, and then had an insane season with the Rangers.
To think this guy wasn't in the NHL until he was like 24 is kind of unbelievable.
And the fact that, I mean, a lot of the time this season,
he won Rookie of the Year at 25.
Yeah, a lot of time this season, he played with Ryan Strome instead of Zibanejad, and he kind of legitimized Strome as a top 6 center in the league just from playing with him, which gives them a good potential option to keep with them, or kind of just use that as a stopgap. But I mean, Panarin makes that's a sign that he's a truly elite player. Is the fact that he's making the other players around him that much better.
Making other players around him better. Yeah.
And I really liked that they signed Kreider long term, because he was a player that fit their system, obviously loved being in New York. I mean, it's an awesome city. Imagine being able to play there. And he's someone that they know well, and it kind of shows commitment to the team that they're ready to become, more than they were before. Obviously, Kako, man, he's only 19 still, and he's going to get so much better. A lot of his struggles this year were him trying to do too much, which just doesn't work on the smaller ice surface compared to international play. But that's something. I mean, he has such high-end skill. They just look like they're going to have a stacked top 6 with him in it in the future. And their defense is really good, man. Like, especially on the right side, that's the hardest to come by as a right side defenseman. Just on the right side alone, they got Trouba, D'Angelo, who had an unreal season, and Adam Fox, who super underrated as a rookie. amazing all-around defenseman, super smart, and only 22 as well. So D'Angelo finally seemed to, reach his potential as a former first-round pick. Trouba, kind of that stabilizing force. Fox as well. I don't know if they can keep all of them, but I mean, even if they can't, there's an asset and at least a solid top four on that right side. And Ryan Lindgren seemed capable of probably playing on the top four as well on the left. And what I loved is their prospect pool is filled with left-handed defensemen. They got Keandre Miller and Zach Jones, who are both on the Team USA for the World Juniors this past season. Matthew Robertson as well. So they've got those guys ready to help fill in on the left side in the future. Now, I'm not saying that, obviously, I love Colorado's defense, and as I said, it's kind of a close distinction between the two. But what separated for me was the fact that they have Igor Shesterkin, who has the potential to be one of the best goalies in the league. In this small sample size, he just completely took the league by storm, was playing unreal. And I'd even say that Georgiev is a potential, at this point, of trading value. I think he's a better long-term option than anyone Colorado has to offer. So the fact that they have him, they can choose what to do with him, probably trade him, get some good value back, because there are some teams looking for a goaltender, and he's one that seems like he can do it in the future. I think that kind of really sticks out. But yeah, once again, up front, Kravtsov and Anderson, as you were mentioning. Niels Lundqvist on the back end. They just look like they're going to be really good. They have some great players now, and they're just going to get that much better. And the fact that they have the goalie kind of puts them ahead Colorado in my mind.
That was the top 5 picks that we had for each thing. So your top pick was New York. My top pick was Colorado. We had pretty similar lists, except for a couple teams there, and that was pretty fun, actually.
Yeah. Do you have any honorable mentions as well, Spencer? The teams.
My honorable mention was Carolina. If I was to choose any team that really poked out for me, it was Carolina due to their defense, just like Carolina's. Colorado's. But I think that would be my only honorable mention. All the other teams I was looking at, I was like, they have some good talent, but I wouldn't put them ahead of any other team I have on this list. So.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, there's a reason they're an honorable mention, not on the list. But there were two teams that I want to mention. I was considering, but because of certain flaws, I would say I couldn't quite put them in. And one of them is the Los Angeles Kings. This is based on the fact that they have probably the greatest depth in a prospect pool, including Ottawa. I mean, the amount of decent players that they have at their disposal in the prospect pool is pretty crazy. Alex Turcotte being kind of the top guy. He can probably be either 1B, 2A center in the league, at least a top 6 center. Mm-hmm. Arthur Kaliev, who is a polarizing player, but I mean, everywhere he's been, he's produced. Kind of has a weird skating stride.
Goal scorer.
And he's also a really underrated playmaker as well. He can make solid plays with it. Samuel Fagemo, who was one of the top forwards for Team Sweden this past season. He was a second-round pick, so he was underrated. But obviously he's kind of matured into a game that seems like will make the NHL someday. Gabe Vilardi, who's back finally after dealing with some injury troubles, which is great.
Carl Grundstrom.
Grundstrom as well. Rasmus Kupari, Akil Thomas.
Sean Dursey.
But all those guys that I was listing there are all forwards, which is kind of what they need most. They've had trouble scoring in the past couple of years, and it seems like there's a great infusion of youth that's going to come in. And they also got Bjorn Foot as well last year with the first-round pick that they got from the Leafs, along with
I like Bjorn Foot a lot.
And Dursey, Kale Clagg as well. Jerry Anderson Dolan, if you remember him for the World Juniors.
Yeah.
I mean, I can just keep listing off Aiden Dudas, who was on the World Juniors this year.
They've got a great team, a young team.
But I still think they got to deal with
a little bit away. Yeah.
Some cap issues. I mean, Doughty's contract we've mentioned isn't great, and they kind of haven't had the talent start to play in the NHL yet, so they're going to be a couple years away. They've got to get used to that. and really find the super elite talent, which they might get in the draft this year. Starting off, I think they came in fourth last in the standings. Do you know, so Spencer? I think they were
I have
fourth
no
last.
idea. I can look it up actually very quickly.
Yeah, I think they're around that neighborhood. I mean, a lot of projections would get them Jamie Drysdale, which I mean, add that to the blue line with all their talent up front.
Player.
Yeah, like it's looking good. But because of that unknown factor, once again, they got a lot of draft picks coming up, 3 second-round picks, but
They came second last in their conference, but they had how many points?
Well, Detroit would have been
64, 64 points. Yeah, they came fourth last.
Yeah, so, that projects to be a really good talent in this draft. Whatever happens with lottery, we don't know, but they got lots of draft picks the next 2 seasons, so we'll see. They've got potential, but I just don't think they're quite ready yet with the players that have made that impact. Once again, I was looking for a balance between prospect pool and impact young players in the NHL.
100%.
A team that did have that was very close, but there's a fatal flaw that we'll mention, is the Philadelphia Flyers.
Ooh.
Because they have great talent all over. I mean, you start in goal, they got Carter Hart, who's 21 now. I mean, they don't really need to worry about goaltending for the future. He's a stud.
That was a big worry for them for a while. I remember they were trying to figure out who their goalie was for so long, and they had to call up this kid, and all of a sudden he started winning games for them, and everyone's just like, oh, who is this guy? But he was always a great goalie. I mean, in Everett, I think he was with Dustin Wolf as his backup. He had like a .946 save percentage or something like ridiculous in the WHL, and like he had that consistently throughout, and he's always been a great goaltending prospect, I think. And Dustin Wolf is part of the Calgary Flames organization. I think he's an underrated goalie prospect in my opinion. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, no, for sure.
With Philly.
And Wolf just got signed actually to an entry-level contract.
by Calgary,
So their goaltending position seems, like in good hands, I would say. You're the goalie, but I think, from what I understand, Carter Hart's all right.
I'm joking. Yeah, of course, he's an unbelievable goalie.
Yeah, and their defense as well. They've got so many young defensemen, man. They got Ivan Provorov, who's kind of really taken some tough minutes on the top line. Had to sacrifice a bit of his offensive output, but he's facing top competition every night. Travis Sanheim as well is 24. Robert Haig, 25. Philip Myers, 23. Sam Morin is 24. They got all these guys, and even Yegor Zamula, who is kind of underrated. But, obviously you don't recognize the name, but he was paired with Alex Romanov for Team Russia at the World Juniors. And a lot of scouts, including myself, think that he played a lot better than Romanov did in that World Juniors, that he was kind of the consensus second best defenseman in that tournament behind Rasmus Sandin, I believe.
That's impressive.
So he's kind of flew under the radar, and he got hurt just after the World Juniors as well, so kind of the buzz wasn't there around him, but he's kind of under the radar to look out for. And then up front as well, man. I mean, Travis Konechny, super young, great player. He's only 23 still. Joel Farabee.
He's gritty too. He kind of reminds me of Brendan Gallagher a little bit. Konechny. A faster Brendan Gallagher.
Yeah, who might have, and this is no slight to Brendan Gallagher. I love Gallagher as a player, but maybe a little bit more elite finishing talent.
No, he's like a better version of Gallagher is what I'm trying to say. Like I'm trying to say he's like Gallagher in the sense of his personality on the ice. Like he likes to get in your face. He likes to push you. He's not the biggest guy, but he'll get in your face no matter what. Like he won't fight you necessarily, but he's definitely you're definitely gonna know he's there.
For sure. So I mean he's great. Morgan Frost, who played well in the NHL when he had the chance this year. Isaac Ratcliffe,
Sault Ste. Marie graduate. Yeah.
Former captain at Guelph and everything. So they got all those forwards, but what holds them back, in my opinion, is their just dreadful contract situation. They've made some silly moves, and it's going to catch up to them. I mean, Kevin Hayes had a great second half of the season, but he's got 6 more years at over $7 million.
It's overpaid.
he seems like a
by
great guy
long
as well,
shot.
but that's going to be tough,
That
especially when you
shouldn't.
consider
Yeah.
Jacob Voracek, 4 more years at over $8 million. He's slowed down this year.
Yeah.
He's 30, and good old JVR has 3 more years at $7 million. So with all those young guys, I mean, they're going to need contracts.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably going to hope that one of those players gets taken by Seattle in the expansion draft. I'm assuming they'll try to
Yep. That's what I
make
was
a trade.
thinking.
But I mean, in those 3 players, I mean, that's over $22 million in not super elite talent.
No.
So
No.
that's difficult, at least for the foreseeable future. But they have a lot of great prospects on the way, kind of all around. So I wanted to give
The
them
only the only way I would ever see Seattle taking Kevin Hayes in the expansion draft if he was exposed is if they needed to reach the cap limit. Like that's the only way I could ever see him being picked by them.
I don't
think
think
he has
that would
very much
happen,
trade
actually.
value. Exactly.
But he has a no movement contract.
That's what I was going to say as well. If he has a no movement clause, then there's no way he can even be picked in the expansion draft. So
it's a lot more likely it would be Voracek or Van Riemsdyk.
Yeah, which would not. I mean, Van Riemsdyk's getting older, so is Voracek. So I mean, you don't want to lose players of that caliber, obviously, but it's not the end of the world of compared to players you could have lost.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. So Voracek's, I think, a little bit better than Van Riemsdyk, and I think that would be a way bigger hit than Van Riemsdyk.
Yeah, and with Philly as well. I mean, there are 2 players that I didn't mention, but hopefully, we're rooting for them all the best. Nolan Patrick, who's been dealing with migraines and headaches and stuff, but he has, once again, great pedigree, could really help impact them, and Oscar Lindblom as well, who is battling through cancer. So, obviously, that takes precedent over the NHL, but they do have bright futures as hockey players, hopefully, if they can, take care of the more serious stuff first.
Exactly. That's what you want to see. Is you want to see them get through that, because who cares about teams at that point? It's like they're a person and they're fighting through something. So it's just a game that's supposed to have fun. At the end of the day, it's still a business, but it's like at the end of the day, you look at a person over just the team and hating the team or hating the city. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's a good place to stop for this episode. I think we covered what we wanted to talk about. We covered the top 5 teams we thought had the best futures, and I think our picks are all reasonably there's good reason to pick each team we picked. There's no outliners I think we missed on any of the teams, or any teams we missed. I'm sorry if we missed them, if you're a fan of them, but we can't pick them all, obviously. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else to add?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Again, thank you very much for watching this episode of The Seric Show. I have been your host, Spencer Van Winters.
I've been Eric.
And thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and tune in again next week. Bye.